Right, so today the microcultural group that I will be sharing with you guys is painting, which I am a firm believer myself and follow the tradition myself. And along with my family, we're very much in the art community. Mhm. Anyway, so further on, we're going to be talking about understanding painting. Um, that's almost like the first level of really belonging to the community, which painting can be thought of as a solitude activity, usually requires one-on-one with the paint and a person, and also usually is done in a studio alone or in a room alone, and can also bring happiness rather than like loneliness. Um, for a person to paint, there can be previous knowledge, but does not have to be. Like if we look at the artwork in the right bottom corner, we can see that this artwork requires a ton of skills, and it has a ton of shading, different colors, different thought process. And as we see in the top right corner, children are capable of creating art, not usually to the skill set that somebody would in the bottom right corner, but they still are capable, and um, like anything really can be considered art, so even some child splattering paint can still be considered art. And art can also be used to relieve anxiety or past trauma. Yeah, and that is really important to take a look at just because art has a big impact on communities and how they feel and how they deal with certain things. But it's also just a way of expressing oneself and I guess relieving some type of stress at the end of the day. And then the first values with painting I will be talking about um, are usually the cultures that are highly interested in painting usually have highly intrinsic motivation when it comes to um, doing artwork because it's very emotionally valuable and it has a high emotional gain to it. Um, it usually requires some type of at least passion in order to be doing it rather than just doing it for no reason. Um, and also, art allows people to become highly focused on creative fantasy world and tune out the rest of the world. This kind of allows people to escape in a sense, also relating to how it relieves anxiety, stress. It kind of allows people to escape to this fantasy world while doing art. Um, and then art is typically used in some cultures to use self-expression. That is why some cultures value personal thoughts and feelings. And it's really important to look at because, like, even somebody dealing with psychological issues, they might portray art differently just because their self-expression is different than the other people around them. And it is quite unique to see how people can communicate through their art. And it also reflects to the fact that complexity and abstract art is valued in this culture because it emphasizes self-expression. The more abstract, usually the more thought behind it and the more meaning to what is going on in the piece of art. All right, so second values within painting. Another value would be collectiveness. In a lot of cultures, people do this as a collective activity and they often get together, share ideas, bond, and have harmony within this practice because it's important to sometimes have a group in on this. And if you take a look in the top right corner at the painting with all the people around it, that required more than one or two people. It required a whole group, and that's also another reason why it's collective. But and it can also be highly individualistic at times, just because art can use individualistic views when focused on spaces like art studios and working on a single project alone. And some people can be caught in it for hours and really infatuated with doing the art, which kind of tunes out the rest of the world. And and it also depends on if a person comes from a collective or individualistic culture. Um, And that really depends too, because like in the USA, we more likely really emphasize individualistic art, doing art alone, especially even with schoolwork. Most of our projects in art class would be done alone. All right, so characteristics or behaviors within culture. So some of the behaviors within this culture are creativity, impulsiveness, outgoingness. This can all be behaviors that you see because art really allows people to self-express, and yeah, and all these behaviors come from being really outgoing when it comes to doing art. Um, and when these groups do have behaviors like this, like creativity, impulsiveness, outgoingness. It usually can be related to a genetic trait, such as cognitive related. Usually, some of the terms would be dopaminergic, serotonergic, and other genes. A1 antipyrine neurojulian, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. All genetics that usually lead to the ability of precision and creativity and allows the brain to think in this abstract way that some people that really aren't able to. Um, some ways that we communicate through art can be a really, really great example. An art therapist, which focus on mental disorders and physical health concerns that are targeted related to art therapy. This profession enriches the lives of individuals through creating art, using creative process, applied psychological theory, and human experience with psychotherapeutic relationship, which is all a communication process. As you can see, it says process, which is an ongoing thing, just like communication. Um, And then painting itself communicates messages to the audience who is potentially looking. And yeah, like I said, with somebody who's more depressed or somebody who's going through more things, when we see their art, it might speak to us more or might have a deeper meaning in our um, viewpoint. Another way of communicating could be the the use of language in this setting. For example, I used paintbrush, acrylic paint, oil paint, water painting, canvas, a painter's knife, rulers, pencils, and I would like to show my acrylic painting that I created of the sun. Like I said, really nice. And I wanted to mention the point that there are also diverse ways of painting as well, like landscape paintings, up close, portraits, abstract, etc. For example, this is a landscape painting. It's capturing more a far view, like a sunset, and another one would be this Bob Ross inspired painting, which Bob Ross really focuses on landscape paintings, and he also is a big believer in a painter's knife. And also, this is on a canvas. So yeah, it's not just a piece of paper. This is a canvas, which is also another way of communicating this process. And then lastly, the summary. So we know that painting has been in cultures for centuries. We've seen painting in many different scenarios, like the Stone Ages. Some of the earliest art supplies that was found was Abolian shells full of groundwork and charcoal. These were in Bolombios cave in South Africa, and are up to 100,000 years old, which is really important to look at just because we could see how far art has dated back to, and it really is a fundamental important thing in our culture. Um, and then by the time 40,000 years hit, there had been tribes in Europe that painted on these caves images of hunter and gatherers. And we could check back and look at these, some of the earliest religious thought, and also just trying to distinguish the difference between man and animal. Um, they were also trying to make sense of why, they were here on this earth. Anyway, these are some of my citations. I didn't want to leave y'all hanging with any of the information. So yeah, if you need anything, you could always look back here.